Hello and welcome to part 2 of this 313 digital graphics editing tutorial, and what we're going to do is we're going to look at learning outcome 3, which is to create your poster. Now what you need to do is you need to open this file, and the first file extension we're going to go to is the readme.pdf. So if we double click on this, that'll appear, and again it's quite generic to what we've been doing earlier. We're reading through the success criteria, and this is to actually create the product itself. And each aspect of the learning outcome here is the different processes involved in creating your actual poster, and all this is to be documented. So if you just want to have a read of this, then the end product is going to be a poster similar to this for, I'll just zoom out, for the London Design Festival. And this is something I've formatted, and I'm going to go through the processes of how this is to be created, which is what you're expected to do initially. So I'm going to close this down, and once you've read through that and you've the success criteria, and you've looked at the kind of thing that's expected from you, you can then start creating. Now, before you start creating, what you need to do is you need to watch tutorials on how to create montages using Photoshop and InDesign. So what you need to do is you need to log into your Mixteam network, and you need to go to a series of videos and watch these videos, as they'll give you a good idea on what you need to do. Now I can give you a heads up on what will be good for this type of thing, which is if you go to page 2, we have the photo layers collage, photo gradient fade, and photo collage with eraser. And the next page to go to, once you've watched those and you've had a bit of a play, is go to page 4. And what you can then look at is using layers in Photoshop, photo merge, merging layers, etc. And also if we go to page 6 as well, which is quite good, because then we can kind of look at other projects that have been done in the past, and you can look at different ways in which you can create a montage. And I recommend BTEC Project 2 Part 12, BTEC Project 2 Part 13 and BTEC Project 2 Part 14, as this gives you a good indication of how to create an actual montage. And don't forget there's videos, other videos on YouTube that you can watch as well. So I'm going to close this down. Once you've got a feel for what you're doing and you've created your poster, what you can then do is document everything in an exemplar board, just like I've shown here. I have 4 boards, and basically what I've done is I've gone through each technique and stated this. This was done in InDesign, and you can do it in InDesign yourselves. You can just lay it out similar to this, or you can use Inkscape. It's entirely up to yourself. And basically I've stated the document setup which I did, the resolution, the colour mode it was in, and I also looked at colour balances, changing levels for each particular image that I imported into Photoshop. And then I showed how I used the layers, spoke a bit about it, and downsized, etc., and added photos on top of each other, you know, to create different styles of effects. This is what you need to do. Each image that you manipulate and that you use as a photo merge within your montage, you need to show this, how you actually did it. And what I did was in InDesign just created little circles and arrows, etc., and just had that pointing to different elements of each particular image and what I did to that image. And I just went through stage by stage, stating how I achieved each particular effect. And you've got progression there. Again, gradient masks, which you learn about in the tutorials. which you will have learnt about. It's all here, and I stated how I actually did this, and I've gone all the way through to my final design, if you like, which you can see on exemplar board 4. Taking it into InDesign, trace it, doing a vector trace, and again stating the colour attributes that were applied, logos, etc. And what I did for the final outcome. Once this was done, I then had an exemplar piece next to this, and I stated basically how my final design was saved. Once all the configurations were completed, I then saved my final design as an InDesign file extension. This was then exported as a 300 dpi PDF document, and it was also set up for print as a 72 dpi PDF document for the web. So if you'd like to do 3 to 4 exemplar boards of how you created it, you can show this through using screenshots, which is if you're on a Mac is Command Shift 4, if you're on a PC it's Windows Shift 4 or screen print. I think it'd be screen print on an actual PC, but if you work on a Mac it's Windows Shift 4. So I'm going to close this down now, and then I'm going to show you the actual final poster for print. Now I'd like you to save two. I'd like you to save one at 72 dpi and one at 300 dpi. Here's an example of the poster I saved as a 300 dpi PDF, which is ready for print. And I'll show you how this was created, how I got this type of how I got this effect around the edges. If you open your poster up in InDesign, what you do is you need to export your final piece. I remember you to have a bleed on there as well. So what you do is you go to File, Adobe PDF Presets, and the first one I want to export is a 72 dpi TIFF, JPEG, sorry, and this is going to be for the web. So it's Adobe, it's File, Adobe PDF Presets, smallest file size, and I'm just going to export this to the desktop, and I'm going to call this poster underscore 72 dpi, so we know the size, and this can be used for the web. So again, it's going to be saved in its smallest file size, so I'll click save on there, and then you just click export. Okay, and then that'll export, and then that'll go to whichever folder you saved it to. Now the next one, I want to export this for print, and I'll show you the actual effects of this. So Adobe PDF Press Quality, and I'm going to change this to 300 dpi, so we know this is ready. This is going to be ready for print, and click save. Now what we need to do is go to, once this is done, we need to go to marks and bleeds, and we'll put all printer marks on this. We've got crop marks, bleed marks, registration marks, colour bars, and page information. And I'm also going to use the bleed, so use document bleed settings. If I click that, that's going to go to 3 mil, and we can then export and click OK. And I'm just going to close that down. That's now closed, and I'll show you what this looks like as a 300 dpi PDF. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit, and what we've got is we've got all our presets around the side of the document, colour bars, trim area, bleed area as well, which is going to be useful for a printer. So initially that's what we've got, and that's our final 300 dpi end product there. So I can then close this down, and then if we look at the web, here's the one I saved as 72 dpi, which can be used on a poster, which can be used as a on the web as a poster or a flyer, and it can be uploaded to Facebook, your website, and be shared around the social media network. Okay, so I can then close this down, and I'm just going to go back to my final poster. And if we click down, what we need to do finally for learning outcome 3 is an asset management list. Now, each asset that you use is an image, and for instance, for an example, I want to use the Big Ben image. We need to put in a description. So the file is a JPEG image, color profile RGB, the actual size in pixels, and then the source of where we actually got that from. So we can get all that information, and how you get that information is simply by right-clicking on the image itself. I'll show you how to do that now. And how you do that is by what I've just done there, just by opening your file. And for instance, if I go for Big Ben London, I can double-click this image, and then I can right-click on the actual image itself. Let me do it in there, but I'll show you how to do it in this. It's the same process. If we open up this image, you can open up any image, and then if you right click, so I'll do that again. If you just right click, don't open the image, sorry, if you just actually click on the image itself and then right click and go to get info, the information will appear on there it's got everything we need to know in relation to that particular image. So it's a case of selecting the image and then right clicking on the image itself and get info, and that tends to give us our RGBs, our color profiles, the metadata from the camera, i.e. it was a Canon, gives us the dimensions, exposure time, everything like that. All information that we can actually use and we can put into our asset management list. Once that information's in there, you have a look at the file format that it's repurposed in. So what I've done is I've saved it in Photoshop as a 300 dpi PDF. That's the file extension, and then as a CMYK color mode or color profile. So that's all we need to know on there, and then we just do that for each image. And how you do that is basically, I'll just go on to Try Me. If I double click on this, you'll do that by opening the asset management list. Here I've got the table, and make sure that you've got your cursor selected inside the table, and then it's going to be a case of insert, go to table, insert, rows below, and then you can type away, put your image in, which is image name, whatever the image may be, the file extension, the color profile, the image size, and the actual source, and then the file format. What did you do to the image? So we're looking at the file type, a TIFF, the color, which is the color mode, CMYK, and then the size of the file, 300 dpi. That's all we need. And so we have an asset management list, so we're in control of our images initially. Once that's done, we can then go on to Learning Outcome 4, which is just below. And again, if I double click on the README, again we can read through the specification, and then once you read through the specification, we can then do our evaluation report. Now, Learning Outcome 4 is all about evaluating the product, so you need to read through each learning outcome carefully. Once that's done, you need to look at the report itself, and then you can make changes. And how we make changes is by simply using the try me document.